Well, first of all,
5.
First of all, we have limits on all our inalienable rights. None of them are limitless rights. The right to free speech is not limitless. The example that's always cited is you can't scream fire in a movie theater because you could harm others.
But we do not put gags in people's mouths when they walk into a theater.
I know it. I know, but there are common sense things that you have to take into consideration, like what will this person do with a gun when he has it, when he can't see what he's shooting at?
I'm sorry, but I don't know that we make a blanket law like that. Who are you to say that?
Can we make a blanket law that you can't drive?
Do I just say, hey, anybody with Tourette's can't go into a movie theater? Because I don't know, they might scream out, fire, fire! They say the most inappropriate thing at the most inappropriate time. So do we just say, okay, just blanket law? I know everybody can go, has freedom of speech, but you people with Tourette's, you might say something that is really inappropriate and against the law. Do we do that?
No, but that's a silly example. Because we're talking about
a silly example.
We're talking about common sense.
Excuse me.
We're talking about common sense.
Common sense?
And common sense says that you've got a deadly weapon in the hands of somebody who can't see what they're shooting at.
Why is it against the law to yell fire in a movie theater? Because it will cause panic and people will trample people to death.
Uh-huh.
So it's a deadly weapon. The tongue is a pretty powerful weapon.
This is just silly.
No, it's not silly. No, it is not silly.
It is.
You don't have a right to say, I can't defend myself. It is not. You do not have the right. You do not have the right to take away my right of self-defense.
I'm not taking away your right of self-defense.
Yes, you are. You're saying that
you're not blind.
Blind people. I'm going blind, and I know exactly who will go and take my gun away.
You have no right. Go blind, yes.
No,
come
you
into
have
your
no
house
right.
to take that stuff
if
away
I
from
have, you. If I am a look, you know what it took to buy a gun and put it in your house, right? You're a responsible human being. Okay, so you know that responsible human beings look at a gun not as a plaything. Do you think a blind man is like, God, this is going to be fun. Hey, boom. Do you think so? Or do you think maybe they put even a little bit more into the purchase of a gun than you do?
I just don't think it makes sense. I just don't think you don't know what you're looking at.
Well, you know what?
Because you're not looking at anything.
You know what? I think you're exactly right. And that's why. No. I think you're exactly right. You've turned me around. That's why we should not let blind people on sidewalks. Because if they're by themselves without a dog, how can they possibly ever cross the street? Yeah. They can't cross the street. They can't see cars coming. They don't even know what's out in the street. We teach our kids right from birth practically look both ways. They can't look both ways. Let's not let them on the sidewalk.
You've got somebody that can help them. You've got dogs that can help them. You've got people that can help them.
There are people that do.
We've got sounds that help them.
Okay. Hang on just a second. So if there's an intruder in my house, and I have geared my whole life to hearing, and I can find my way through things, and I know everything in my house, and I'm hearing somebody down there.
And you know who it is by sound? You know who it is
I know
and what their intent is.
No, I'm sorry. Do you just shoot in the dark? Do you shoot in the dark?
You might.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
You might.
I might shoot in the dark, but not before I say this. Who are you? Identify yourself. I have a gun. And I will consider you a threat, and I will use it. That's the first thing I say. If somebody comes into my house, I put them on alert. I have a gun, and I know how to use it, and I will kill you. Identify yourself. If they are like, okay, honey, it's me, then I don't shoot my wife. But if there's somebody, well, no, I should have that on record. I don't shoot my wife.
The ring thing still bothering you?
No, you guys are bothering me on the ring thing. Okay. So I don't shoot. I identify. I have them identify. I'm sorry, but if I've asked you to identify yourself several times and you didn't identify yourself, I don't feel bad if I shoot an innocent bystander in my house at 3:00 in the morning that shouldn't be there and they have not identified themselves. And anybody who's coming in at 3:00 in the morning into a blind man's house unannounced.
Well, it's always 3:00 in the morning to a blind man. I mean, it's always that time of night.
You want to have this conversation?
Hey, come on.
It is if somebody comes into my house,
it is always if
somebody
totally
comes
blind.
into my house at 6:00 at night, I'm still a blind man, and I know what general time it is of the day, and I know at 6:00 they're not most likely going to be a robber. At 3:00 in the morning, no sane person comes into my house unannounced, especially if they know me and they know that I'm blind. They open up the door and they're like, Bill, there's a problem. I just want you to know, Bill, it's me. You don't open a door of a blind man's house at 3:00 in the morning, especially one that says to you, you know what, I'm going to get a gun because I am not comfortable. This is a bad neighborhood or whatever it is. I am not taking away somebody's right to own a gun and use it in self-defense unless they are an irresponsible person that has proven themselves to be irresponsible because of insanity or because they're not a law-abiding citizen.
You're saying blind people only live in bad neighborhoods? Is that what you're saying?
That's a specious argument.
Wait, follow-up question for Pat here. Glenn Beck.
And again, I am not the enemy here. I'm gun.
No, you're not.
Are the guy
Freak who wants to take guns out of everybody's hands. You're acting like I'm the enemy here.
Just blind people's house.
I said I don't know how I feel about it. Right. I didn't say I want to ban them from having guns.
No, I know.
I'm uncomfortable with it.
It's an interesting, because I think most people would say, that's why Stevie Wonder said this, by the way, is because he knows most people would say blind people can't have guns. I mean, I think it's a normal thing for people to believe. But
hang on just a second. Just expand on your point. The reason why I'm so hostile on this is because you've bought into Stevie Wonder's deal.
I didn't buy into it.
He's conflicted. He's conflicted. I think that's okay.
That's what I said at the beginning of this.
No, I don't remember that. That's
You're yelling at the top of your lungs, and I'm not the enemy.
That's hold on. Specious argument.
Let me ask you this question. Glenn Beck has a bunch of guns. Glenn Beck is obviously going blind among of 5,000 other health problems he has. He actually does go blind. Do you confiscate his guns?
I don't confiscate anybody's guns.
So why don't you? If they're so dangerous in his possession, why don't you confiscate?
Well, if I go blind,
I don't know. We'd have to talk about that. I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me for blind people to be shooting at anything in their house because they don't know what it is and they're not going to hit it.
Well, you did.
If you're totally blind, I don't care how good
blind
your sense of smell and your sense of sound and all your senses are. You don't know where the person is.
I don't know why you're yelling at me. You're yelling at me like I'm the enemy. You're raising your voice and yelling at me. I'm not the enemy here.
It's a sign that you just lost.
Here's our. Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Is it now?
Yeah, it is.
I gotta say, you did lose in your attempt to convince him in 5 sentences.
Well,
but
if somebody doesn't want to understand the Constitution of the United States is an inalienable right. You cannot infringe on these rights unless I'm not a law-abiding citizen or a responsible citizen.
Well, you're reading in certain things into it. Unless I'm this or unless we make other restrictions than that. We make more restrictions than that. Those aren't the only restrictions.
What are the other restrictions? What are the other governmental? You have a right to tell me I cannot have a gun besides insanity or I'm a lawbreaker.
Well, let's look at the First Amendment in the same way. And let's talk about the restrictions on that.
And I just did.
There are restrictions.
You don't take away someone's right to speak in a movie theater if they have Tourette's and are going to say you don't.
There are other restrictions.
You punish them after.
That's not the only restriction on First Amendment
And do you punish them after? Or do you, on these other restrictions, I'd love to hear, we have to take a break. You come back and tell me these other restrictions. And when you do you punish them before or do you punish them after?
No, you punish them after. So you're going to punish the blind gun owner after he shot somebody in the head whom he shouldn't have shot in the head.
Yeah, unfortunately, yes, I am.
Unfortunately, yes. Okay. Well, it's a little late. That's a little late.
Yeah, well, what are you doing in the blind man's house at 3:00 in the morning?
It's always 3:00 in the morning in the blind man's house.
I am not the enemy here. I don't know why you have to raise your voice. He accepted a plea deal. Who's coming in at 3:00 in the afternoon to a blind man's house? They're going to know that he is.
How do you know they know it's a blind man's house? They don't know.
Well, anybody who's coming in without nefarious purposes does.
Blind man, I'm here to deliver a pizza. I'm just going to let myself in.
I'm sorry. How did the blind man find the phone? Maybe he was just punching all the wrong numbers. He didn't know exactly how to punch all the numbers.
We'll
how
get
did
into
he find
phones.
out?
We'll get into phones in a minute because they maybe shouldn't have those either.
Exactly right.
Taking away everybody's rights.
A former hospital
dictator, Pat Hussein.
All of a sudden, Mr. Gray finds out.
I am the one who revealed this. Why is it?
He's like, all of a sudden, maybe, wait a minute, hang on. Do you know what the definition of legally blind is? No, tell me, Mr. Gray.
According to this, 2100 vision,